Taylan Vaya stood at the window of the Concordant Spire. The great tower hung above the Calrose Nebula, its walls alive with refracted light, colors rippling in endless motion. To the gathered species of the Concord, the spire was a monument to unity. To Taylan, tonight, it looked like a tomb. He was a Erythian, a being of crystalline flesh and light, tall, elegant, luminous. And yet the glow of his body dimmed, weighed down by exhaustion. He was old by human reckoning, not so old by his people's count, but enough to feel the years like cracks spreading through glass. 5 cycles. That was how long the Erythian collective had been fighting the war. And 5 cycles was all it had taken for his people to begin dying by the millions. The corridor behind him stirred with diplomats and messengers. Normally it was a blur of sound and motion. But tonight there was no urgency, no rushing tide of responsibility. Tonight, the envoys of the Concord moved like shadows, speaking softly, avoiding his eyes. They saw him only as the weary voice of a species losing its war. They never looked to the back corner where a human observer always stood. The lone representative of a young world dismissed as primitive, a curiosity, a species too new to matter. Taylan turned his gaze back to the data plate in his hands. Another red marker burned against the map of his people's stars. Another world lost. Another sanctuary turned to ash. He thought of the refugees who had fled there, the families who had carried what little light they had left, believing the Concord would protect them, believing in treaties, in sanctions, in unity. Now they were dead. The chamber bell chimed, calling another emergency session. Taylan descended into the grand hall of the Concordant Spire. It was vast, gleaming, every wall alive with holograms of stars and empires. In the center stood the speaking platform, where a weary Erythian envoy showed the latest destruction. Miradan 4. A refugee world, turned to glass, 3 million gone. No warning, no mercy. The envoy's voice cracked as he spoke. His hands trembled. Taylan's glow flickered faintly in sympathy. But the chamber's response was as hollow as always. Outrage, condemnation, speeches about principles, and finally, the decision. We will increase economic sanctions. We will issue a formal protest. That was all. Taylan closed his eyes, clutching the arms of his chair until cracks spidered across the crystalline surface. They were still playing at diplomacy while worlds burned. They expected him to watch, to sit in silence, to accept the role of a powerless observer. They expected the human to do the same. Back in his private quarters, Taylan studied the map again. Red markers pressed closer to the Erythian heartworlds. His people had fought bravely, but bravery was not enough. He stared at the shrinking borders, his mind racing with questions he could not answer. A pulse of light blinked on his communicator. A message. It was from David Hale. The human intelligence officer stationed at the spire was discreet, quiet, never noticed. But his words tonight carried urgency. Need to meet. Maintenance level 3. Urgent. Taylan hesitated only a moment. Then he rose and descended into the bowels of the spire. The maintenance levels were dim, filled with the hum of machinery and the bitter scent of oil. Hale waited in the shadows, his face lined with grim determination. He clutched a data chip tightly in his fist. He activated a jamming field. You need to see this, Taylan. The chip slid into the data plate. The hologram bloomed, fleet movements, command codes, routes of attack. The enemy was advancing faster than anyone believed, faster than anyone had admitted. Taylan's glow dimmed to a cold amber. They are pushing toward Earth, he whispered. Hale nodded. His voice was quiet, bitter. The Council knows. They've known for cycles, and they've done nothing. Before Taylan could respond, their emergency communicators pulsed again. Another session, another tragedy. This time the images were worse. An entire atmosphere poisoned by a biochemical weapon. Oceans foaming, forests rotting in moments. 6 million dead in the first hour. The chamber erupted in horror, but Taylan watched more closely. Some representatives recoiled in genuine grief, but the most powerful. Their eyes shifted, calculating. Their hands moved quickly, sending private messages across invisible channels. That was when he understood. Later, Hale showed him the rest. Shipping records, weapon transfers, credits flowing into private accounts. The very leaders who blocked intervention were selling arms to both sides, making themselves rich on war. Taylan felt a fracture deep within himself, his light flickering erratically. He had begged them for help while they profited from his people's suffering. It gets worse, Hale said. He showed Talan an old report, a first contact evaluation. The words made Talan tremble. Humanity had been judged impressive, resourceful, adaptable, dangerous in their genius for survival. The recommendation had been full membership, but someone had altered it. The final version labeled them primitive, unfit, unready. They buried us, Hale said. His jaw was tight. Because they knew we wouldn't stay quiet. They knew Earth wouldn't look away while they fed worlds into the fire. Talan's glow surged, fierce and angry. They feared you. They should have, Hale said. Talan closed his eyes. He thought of his people. He thought of the millions already gone. He thought of Miradan's children playing in the twin suns. He thought of the enemy fleets pressing closer to Earth. And he made his decision. Give me everything, he said. His voice was low, but it burned with resolve. Every record, every credit trail, every intercepted command, give it to me, and then contact Earth. That night, Talan worked without rest. His chamber glowed with the fire of 100 holograms, data weaving together into a damning net. The lies of the Council, the profiteering, the betrayal of Earth. At dawn, a single message flashed across his plate. From Admiral Thomas Reed, commanding Earth's hidden fleets. We are ready. The shipyards are active. The chamber was full when Prime Chancellor Varos called the session. The enemy's delegates lounged in smug silence, their victory nearly assured. Talan stepped forward, his voice cut through the air like shattered glass. Point of order. The Erythian Collective demands immediate right to speak, Varos sneered. Observer species have no such right. Talan's glow brightened, brilliant and unyielding. Article 47 of the Charter grants voice when peace is threatened by deceit. I invoke it now. Before Varos could protest, Talan raised his plate. The chamber's central display lit with evidence. For 5 cycles, we have watched worlds burn while this council spoke empty words. His voice echoed across the chamber. We have begged, and you answered with sanctions. We have pleaded, and you answered with protests. All the while you grew rich from our blood. The holograms shifted, displaying the weapon shipments. The credits, the falsified human report. Names blazed across the chamber, undeniable. You told us humans were primitive, Talan roared, because you were afraid. Afraid of what they would do if they saw the truth. Well, they saw everything. Chaos erupted. Delegates shouted. Accusations flew. The enemy's envoys rose in alarm, but Talan's voice drowned them all. The enemy is not slowing. They are coming for Earth. They are coming for all of us. And you sit here in your marble chairs, selling scraps of honor for credits. Enough. The Erythian Collective will not die quietly, and humanity will not remain silent. At that exact moment, the reports began to flood in. Enemy supply lines collapsing, convoys shattered, command fleets ambushed, human warships moving faster than anyone believed possible. Operation Iron Shield had begun. The chamber dissolved into chaos. The enemy's delegates fled, their faces pale. Varos's clique froze as their betrayal unfolded on the screens. Talan stood tall, his glow blazing with righteous fury. You wanted humans to sit in silence, he thundered. But they learned. They learned that age does not grant morality. They learned that power without conscience is rot. And they are done watching. The next cycles were war. Human fleets struck with fury, their weapons ingenious, their tactics unpredictable. They broke the enemy's rigid lines. They shattered their fleets. They dismantled their war machine piece by piece. The Concord's armies, inspired and unshackled, rallied beside them. And the profiteers. They were dragged into the light, their wealth stripped, their names cursed. By the end of the 3rd cycle, the enemy was finished. Talan stood again in the rebuilt chamber of the spire, but it was no longer a hollow monument. It was alive with new voices, new power, new hope. Humanity no longer lingered in the shadows. They stood at the center, equal, respected, feared. Talan looked out at the assembly. His people had survived. His world had endured. The galaxy itself had changed. And now they waited for his words. He raised his voice, and it carried to every star. Some said humanity was too young to guide the stars, but youth sees what age forgets. When corruption paralyzes the old, it is the young who act. When fear chains the mighty, it is the bold who break them. He looked directly into the cameras, his light blazing brighter than ever. The true measure of a people is not in their years. It is not in their wealth. It is not in their power. The true measure of a people is in the courage of their convictions. And across the galaxy, it became a proverb whispered in streets and shouted in halls of power. Age may grant wisdom, but only courage grants survival.